Last time on the insurmountable backlog.
Gohan felt sure he had failed and that the Earth would soon be lost. But then came a voice.
Don't you see? That's what she was there for. That was the plan. To give you a boner. And you got one. Congratulations, you're human.
Dad, where are you?
Yes, it was Goku, communicating from the other world with the help of King Kai.
It's like looking in a mirror, only not.
And he was convinced that all Gohan needed was a little reassurance.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z!
Okay, it's all starting to become clear now, Dad.
Revitalized by his father's vote of confidence, Gohan buckled down for one last run.
Jesus Christ, great.
There's a mutant within the X-Men universe by the name of Soft Serve, and her ability is that she poops ice cream. I'm not making this up. Almost any flavor can be squeezed out her anus. It's quite the useless power, but I mention her because bad games are like Soft Serve. You either receive ass cream that's utterly disgusting, or if you're luckier, you might stumble upon a flavor that's sorta tasty, maybe memorable even, but it still contains more than enough nuts to ruin the experience, unchanging the fact that at the end of the day, it's still somebody's shit. That's the last dead end in a nutshell. It's rectal sludge that I couldn't knowingly feed to another person. But in secret, I might indulge in it because something about it is just delicious enough that it leaves me wanting more. I know that's quite the analogy to open a video on, but no joke, The Last Dead End is an amazing disaster piece. It's Tommy Wiseau's The Room, but in video game form. Everything about it is a mess, a how-to guide on what not to do while making a video game. But there's something charming to its relentless aloofness, and I kinda dig it. It's charming in its terribleness, sorta like Grey Skies, a War of the Worlds story. Another game I reviewed a handful of months ago. Like that one, this game remains memorable because even with a lack of skill, it's obvious the developers had passion while creating it. And that goes a long way. It's uncompromisingly committed to a vision. It also has some unique elements, largely in its setting. It takes place within the Old City, a very real location within Baku, the capital city of Azerbaijan. And its culture is reflected throughout. There's encyclopedic entries galore and lots of little tidbits and factoids scattered about. This is aided by the fact that it was developed in Azerbaijan. The dev studio is called AZ Dimension, and this is a small team of roughly 5 people, and let me tell you, game development is not a large field within that country. The studio is actually the first one from that region to get an NVIDIA partnership. Therefore, I think it's safe to say that learning the ins and outs of game design didn't come easy, which is allowing me to cut them a little extra slack. Although don't take that as an endorsement, the game is still really fucking bad, just hilariously so. Like, I don't even know where to begin. Even describing the plot feels like a fever dream. The voice acting is, I believe, text-to-speech, and it's poorly translated on top of that. Even the subtitles don't always match the dialogue, so chunks of it don't make much sense, and there's a lot of jumping around. From what I can tell, our lead is Farhad, and he's a native of the Old City, yet following the death of his mother, he moved to the United States. There he became a writer and filmmaker, and now he's returning home at the behest of an old friend who wants to show him a book which might aid him in a film he's making. It's upon receiving the book that he's bombarded with mystical text which sends him on a journey to the dark world where he learns he's the chosen one who must stop the apocalypse. The plot deals heavily with Zoroastrianism, which is a religion that originated within that part of the world, which plays into some of the cultural charm I mentioned previously. I admittedly googled some of the plot while working on the script as it's been a few months since I played the game and I needed a quick refresher. And I love this line from the Steam page. According to the devs, Farhad is simply working on a film for an international television station. They couldn't even make one up. It's just an international television station. I don't know why, but that's funny to me. They also claim it takes place in unusual locations for the genre, like an ancient palace and ancient ruins, as if that's at all unique to horror and adventure games. But I'll let them have this one. Maybe they don't get many new releases down in the Old City.
I see. These stone clocks show magic number 21. as it was in the book. The same. Time transforms into hours, into days, then into months, years, and end with a century.
So you got a 25%
21
at
hours,
best at beat me.
21st day,
And then you add Kurt
the
Angle to the
12th
mix.
month,
Your
12th
chances
year,
of winning
the
drastically
21st
goes down.
century.
See, the three ways
Furious
at sacrifice, you got a
Jalen Ryan.
33 and a third chance of winning. But I got 60.
What does it have to do with 21? What is going on?
From the onset, it's obvious what kind of game you're in for. It's clunky and awkward, and its attempts at jump scares are hilariously bad. Within the first 5 minutes, it throws everything at the wall in an attempt to make something stick. There's a spooky phone call, a bird, a blinking doll head, and a creepy monster. The pacing is absolutely ridiculous, and it fails at every attempt to be scary. Throughout the entire experience, only one thing caught me off guard. There's a statue that bitch slapped me when I walked past it. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting it, and man oh man did it crack me up. It's one of the most memorable elements of the game, especially as the statue eventually begins following you, only stopping if you turn around to look at it. It's a shame this section is so short because I would have liked to have seen that expanded upon. Like the weeping angels from Doctor Who, there's something creepy about a statue that moves closer when you can't see it. But that part isn't until about 30ish minutes into the game, because following the intro where they throw every cliche in the book at your face, you're put inside a boring office building where you must walk around in search of the lead's former love. It's after you stumble upon her in the office that a painfully cringe-inducing cutscene plays out. Like, I can't stress this enough, the dialogue is horrible and the mistranslations just punch you in the face, one after another.
Are you wearing glasses already?
No, these are not usual glasses. They're experimental. They have functions which help me with my work. I have come here to write the scenario for the movie about our old city. Okay, I'm gone.
If you ever play this game, just get used to it, because it doesn't let up for the rest of the experience, which actually benefits the game. Without the weirdness, I certainly wouldn't be covering it. It'd have just been a terrible game I'd want to forget, and that's not the case here. So, good on the devs for being odd. It paid off. And Jesus fuck, is this game odd. This is most apparent when the office level ends and you're suddenly in a third-person perspective. Up to this point, it's all been in first, but from here on out, anytime you're in the so-called light world, it's in the third person. This is where the weird charm of the game caught up to me. Walking around the city is a trip. There's almost nothing to interact with, and it's all pretty ugly and visually unimpressive. But with what I assume are extremely limited resources and skill, the developers tried their best to make it feel lived in. Like, music plays from windows and it's all real licensed stuff. Some of it is kinda catchy too. I laughed myself into a stupor after forcing my character to flail around and dance to it. I also stumbled upon a weird cutscene about cats. It's just there, and I don't know what purpose it serves, but once again I laughed my ass off, which is something this game did really well. It made me laugh. A lot.
How many years have passed? Everything has changed here, and I've also changed, but cats? Cats? There is still a lot of them in these ancient streets.
Honestly, and this is gonna sound harsh, it's a good thing the game is so intentionally and unintentionally funny, because the gameplay itself straight up sucks. It's not fun to play. Combat is atrocious, and with much of the game taking place in the dark world, it's unpleasant on the eyes. It's way too dark for its own good, and the shitty flashlight only makes it more apparent. I just sort of bumbled my way through each fight. There's different guns and melee weapons, but they all feel broken, and aiming never quite registers correctly. I just tried my best to go for the head for the quickest kills, but it was always inconsistent on if it made a difference or not. The enemies are also very janky and often glitch out. They just stutter around as if serving as cracked out extras on the wire. There's also boss fights, and like everything else, they're a mess. The amount of bugs really added up in the battles. I'm just glad that they're pretty easy and I never had to repeat them. Well, all but one anyways. Admittedly, this werewolf thing killed me 3 or 4 times. It was this fight that is one of the few instances the game made me a bit angry. It's raining during the battle, which looks horrendous, so it's already rough on the eyes, but what pushed me to my limit is the broken core mechanic. He can only take real damage while retreating, and I think you're supposed to force his retreat by guiding him to beams of light that are shining inside a handful of buildings, but it didn't always work, and with how movement in combat is, you can't exactly dodge his hyper-aggressive attacks, so I just awkwardly ran around the arena looking for health. I only won when my axe glitched out and I stripped a third of his health in a single swing. At least, I assume it's a glitch because all my other attacks did next to nothing, except in the highly inconsistent moments where I got him to run away. But even then, it wasn't as much damage as I did on that one lucky swing. But whatever, glitch or not, I was just happy it ended. On a similar note, there's one other fight near the end where the game bombards you with a metric shit ton of enemies, and they all sorta glitch into one another, and with how broken the overall combat is, it was a frustrating affair. The amount of enemies in that fight just doesn't suit how terrible the gun and melee play is. But outside of those two instances, most of the other combat scenarios were fine. Like, they still very much played like ass, but it was manageable. Just trust me when I say this isn't a game to be experienced for its gameplay. It's one you'll want to witness solely for its batshit insane writing and cutscenes.
I am going to marry soon.
But you do not look like a happy bride.
My father has owed a lot of money, and my groom promised to help, so...
I see. It is a pity. Well, be happy.
You know, I have a high tolerance for bad games. I play a ton of them. Yet most I wouldn't recommend, not even for the memes. They are simply not worth the time. But every now and then, a terrible piece of shit floats to the top, and something about it charms my pants off, and that's what The Last Dead ended. The developers just throw so much at the wall, and in almost every instance it utterly fails, but I kinda respect the attempt. There's even QuickTime events, and the animations and on-screen actions just aren't up to snuff, but it somehow won me over. By the time I fought a dragon as the final boss, I was in legit pain from all the laughter. I was constantly in stitches. If this was a conventional review, it's a game that would score no higher than a 2 or 3 out of 10, but I'll remember this title more fondly than some games I'd give a 7 or an 8. To put it best, it's a disaster piece that I hated playing, but loved experiencing. It's one that I think some gamers will be able to appreciate for no other reason than its weirdness. I just hope you understand it's chunky ice cream that came out of someone's asshole.